Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. We're going to talk about Doctor Who again because there is a lot to talk about again because the show's back on the air. But what we're going to talk about in this episode is whether or not they are throwing the member berries at you or using this retcon doctor to use as a smokescreen against bad ratings. And this seems to be, a huge topic of discussion on a lot of pop culture blogs right now. A lot of people are like, yay, we have a person of color, woman in the TARDIS. And a lot of people are just ignoring the fact that this apparently blows a huge hole in the continuity of Doctor Who if Dr. Ruth, Jo Martin, turns out to be the Doctor precursor to William Hartnell's Doctor. And there's been a lot of talk about them retconning Doctor Who, that the Doctor had more regenerations, more lives before William Hartnell. Again, this is problematic for so many reasons. And some folks are coming out and saying, hey, this is all about the ratings. The ratings aren't good. But now you're morally obligated. You're morally obligated to watch and support the show now, because if you don't, you're a terrible person. And if that doesn't work, if the guilt card doesn't work, we've got Captain Jack. You guys like Captain Jack, right? Remember Captain Jack? Oh, Captain Jack and David Tennant and Rose Tyler, they were a lot of fun, weren't they? The member berries are strong with this. So this does seem like an effort to salvage Doctor Who ratings, which are dropping off a freaking cliff. Now, there was a little bit of an uptick last week, which probably was simply because of the Jodie and Jack Harkness. Of course, nobody knew that the female doctor, the newer, older female doctor, Jo Martin, was gonna be a thing, except for some YouTubers. Gary from Nerdrotic actually called this out months ago. He said that he had somebody from the BBC leak to him that the whole purpose of all of this is to reveal that the Doctor was originally a woman. The Doctor has been a woman before. The Doctor started out as a woman, again, which flies in the face of everything we know about Doctor Who. And this isn't just to, keep the show fresh. This is all about pushing an agenda, according to a lot of people who've watched the episode and are like, what the hell is going on here? And I want to talk a little bit about that, because I've talked about it on Twitter, and there does seem to be a trend with aging pop culture series and movies that, these studios are doubling down. And part of it is agenda, I think, but part of it, I think, is laziness. I think a lot of these studios are lazy. The other day I posted on Twitter, because I do use Twitter. Don't spend a whole lot of time there, but I'm on there. It's becoming clearer and clearer that the purpose of rebooting and retconning decades-old franchises isn't necessarily just to breathe new life into them, but to toss out the baggage of canon so the showrunners don't have to do any due diligence to make sure that it all fits. And that, I think, is what's kind of going on with Doctor Who right now. I think part of it might be agenda, and part of it is Doctor Who is over 50 years old. There's tons and tons of books and audio adventures and all kinds of tie-in stuff, and it does seem like they're just going to throw a lot of that out the window, because they are, and it's happening with Star Trek too. It's happening with Star Wars. They threw out the expanded universe probably because they didn't want to deal with a couple of decades of all this ancillary merchandise. They wanted to make their own stuff. But it is kind of a big middle finger to the fans. So we're going to talk about all this in the video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We're over 90,000. Guys, we're almost to 100,000. We're getting there. We're getting there, and we really appreciate the support. So this is coming from, of all places, RT.com. However, it's written by a British television presenter and broadcast journalist. This isn't a Ruski writing this. And I also want to bring up, the Radio Times, which is admitting now that the Doctor Who ratings are terrible. Doctor Who introduces a black female doctor making history and throwing up a diversity smokescreen against bad ratings. This is an op-ed piece. Now, I'm going to go on record as saying I actually liked Jo Martin's Doctor. I think she was okay. Especially when you put her next to Jodie Whittaker, it becomes very obvious that Jodie Whittaker does not have the presence to be the Doctor. She seems more like a companion. Jo Martin, she is in charge. Now, the problem I have with Jo Martin is where the hell she fits on the timeline. If she's a precursor to William Hartnell, I have a huge problem with that. I have a huge problem with that because, one, it just completely destroys the established canon of 50-plus years, which I understand throwing a curveball every once in a while. And to be fair, I wasn't a huge fan of the War Doctor either. But they did have more wiggle room there because the show was off the air for a number of years, and Eccleston didn't want to do the 50th anniversary show, so I guess that kind of makes sense. Not on board with the idea of there being a Doctor before Hartnell, not on board with the idea of the Doctor starting out as a woman, because we've had so many things come up just in the recent past that indicates that the Doctor did not start out as a woman. But whatever. Okay, this is an opinion. This is an op-ed piece. 13 is an unlucky number even for an alien Time Lord wanting attention. UK TV classic Doctor Who, amid a massive ratings slump, has unveiled a new incarnation of the lead character, injected with a new level of diversity. As a striking male fantasy character, the time and space traveling Doctor has come in all shapes and sizes since the show started in '63, but was actress Jodie Whittaker who became the 13th Doctor and first female to take over the role in a 2017 Christmas special that got everyone talking. Not anymore. Not anymore. In a subversive twist. I love this. Can we just make subversive be synonymous with destructive? Because that's what happened with The Last Jedi. They subverted fan expectations and it destroyed the Star Wars franchise. This move, blowing a hole in canon like they are, might just be the death knell for Doctor Who. I don't know. It could backfire colossally. In a subversive twist, this week's episode introduced a black tour guide named Ruth Clayton, portrayed by Jo Martin, who surprisingly announced that she was also the Doctor. And it's not fake. A lot of people thought, well, maybe she thinks she's the Doctor, maybe she's had her memory wiped, maybe she's the Master, maybe she's from a parallel universe. No, Chibnall has come out and said it's 100% canon. She is the Doctor. Where she fits on the timeline, we don't know, but she is a version of the Doctor. Because he's going on to say that knowing parallel universes and alternate timeline stories, yada, 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 no, she's the Doctor. And they can't backpedal on that anyway, could they? You introduce a black woman as the Doctor and then you take it away, there's going to be hell to pay. So they're not going to do that. I guarantee you they're not going to do that. Many fans were not impressed and took to social media to vent their anger, accusing the BBC of running through a diversity checklist, while others praised the creative team for bringing the children's fantasy character up to date. Again, I want to reiterate, because we're going to have people be like, oh my god, you're such a hater. It's like, no, actually I thought Jo Martin was pretty good. I really did. I just don't like the idea that they're retconning the Doctor. I mean, this is a huge deal, right? This is a huge deal on so many levels. And this is just, it reeks of desperation. We're going to talk about that. Like, they're going to try to bring back things that worked in the past to try to make Doctor Who work now, but I think it's too late. I think we're putting a band-aid on a stab wound again. Nobody cares. Nobody's watching. They've ruined the franchise in the pursuit of wokeness from the Daily Mail. Reincarnating into a different Doctor is nothing new. Explained in universe as the power to regenerate into a completely different body when lethally wounded. It was originally introduced to allow the recasting of original star William Hartnell, who was in poor health. That is true. Nothing in the lore prevents sex or race change, but over a dozen Doctors across the decades were white men until Whittaker. Again, that is true. There was nothing explicitly saying that the Doctor had to be a white male. That was just kind of the tradition for the character for 50 plus years. The latest episode marks the first time a black actress has been cast in a new manifestation of the role. While the character is not a full-time new Doctor as such, wait for it, people will demand it, the way her gender and race are being played up as a making history moment represents a zeitgeist where being divisive trumps a show's need for good writing, plot, and whatever else constitutes quality and attracts viewers. This is kind of important because it does seem like all of this is to distractify. Not just Jo Martin's Doctor suddenly being introduced, but also bringing back Jack Harkness, you know, bringing back the Jadoon, bringing back the Master. Now, it's good to see them at least acknowledge that there were other series before Series 11, because that was one of the biggest complaints we had with Series 11 was it felt completely detached from the show. But now I think they've swung the pendulum too far the other way. And it's almost like, well, fine, we'll give you your Captain Jack, but we're going to raise you one massive, massive retcon. Critics and fans have attributed it, among other things, to the new showrunner. Talking about the ratings have been dropping. They've attributed it to the new showrunner, Chris Chibnall, his weak writing staff, disjointed plot lines, and politicized stories, shallow plots, with one fan online suggesting it's obvious that the BBC are going to cancel Doctor Who. Another saying, this new series is so boring, their solution is clearly to triple down on woke. Well, I don't think retconning the Doctor like this is boring. I think it's stupid. I think it's really stupid. It's almost like they don't have any good stories to tell. So what's the biggest shocker we could give the audience? Oh, hey, everything you knew about the Doctor was a lie. For 50 plus years, all the media, all of the, all the radio dramas, all the books, all the comic books, lies, lies, lies. Because that goes over so well with the fandom. Always. That always plays well to the fandom that has invested decades and tons and tons of money into a franchise to just tell them everything they knew was untrue. You know, we kind of saw it with Star Wars to a lesser degree with Luke Skywalker. You know, we saw how they kind of destroyed Luke Skywalker's character. Again, that wasn't really a retcon, but in a way it kind of was, because everybody just assumed he was going to become a Jedi Master, and it did not play well. So now we're messing with Doctor Who. And again, Jo Martin, fine actress. I think she was actually better than Jodie Whittaker, but this, you know, how they did this, why they did this, is the question here. So entertainment journalist Sarah Robertson says the show's recent ratings say everything. The BBC have a remit to include different actors from different backgrounds, but the reality is this new series with a female lead has brought in the worst ratings ever for the series. I don't know about the worst ratings ever. That seems to come up a lot. I do think Capaldi's last year actually had worse ratings, but I digress. Having a new black version of a previous Doctor isn't just confusing, but it's prime woke millennial mindset that people are now just bored with. I think there's going to be a huge backlash. I think people were kind of caught off guard. Well, not everybody was, and I'm going to talk about that. Why does it have to be a character with a history and ready-made baggage of fan adoration that gets the PC treatment? Well, this is the thing. Again, there's nothing saying that, you know, Jodie Whittaker couldn't regenerate into Jo Martin. You know, there's nothing saying that we couldn't introduce another Time Lord to travel with the Doctor. The Doctor traveled with Romana, traveled with River Song. I guess she was half a Time Lord. Or saying that even Jo Martin is another version of River Song, because actually River Song was a black girl before she was the River Song we knew. She was a blonde girl, then she was a black girl, then she's Alex Kingston, right? So, I mean, that's also possible. Again, this happens so much with established media, established characters. And I mean, personally, I wouldn't want hand-me-down characters. I mean, I know why they do it, because those characters are established, they have a branding, you know, Doctor Who is a huge brand, but you know, you can introduce other Time Lords, you can introduce other characters. You're retconning a show in this way. I mean, this happened with, I guess, with Star Trek Discovery. Now, I haven't watched Star Trek Discovery, but there was a lot of retconning, I guess, of Trek lore in that too, and it didn't play very well, as I understand it, you know. And it's just, it's getting old. It's getting really, really old. You know, for trying to be progressive, it's really not. It's kind of become a trope at this point. Just take a character, gender swap, race swap, bada bing, bada boom, you know. And we saw the comic book industry be destroyed by this kind of thinking. You know, that is a solution to fix things, and it's not. It's actually going to create more problems long term, especially when you're retconning a show as old as Doctor Who. Just not a good idea. But they're also throwing in Jack Harkness. You know, again, Jack Harkness, incredibly popular. But this is coming from the Radio Times. You know, they're like, could Jack Harkness save Doctor Who? The minute and 30 seconds he was actually on screen, they never interacted with the Doctor, maybe. You know, maybe. This is all about the member berries. They gave you a heaping spoonful of member berries to help the retcon go down. That's what happened. But they're talking about how they need to bring more Jack Harkness. More Jack Harkness to Doctor Who to save the show. Clearly, Jack Harkness' return is something diehard fans have wanted for a while without giving up. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people wanted him to show up during Matt Smith's era, during Peter Capaldi's era, but we didn't get it. While you can't always just bow down to fan pressure, in this case, it seems like a canny move for the BBC. Simply put, Doctor Who could use an injection of popularity. This is coming from the Radio Times. While the arrival of Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor was largely applauded, her first full series got a slightly more mixed response, with later episodes especially finding less enthusiasm from viewers. That's a polite way of saying the ratings are dropping off a freaking cliff. The ratings are good, but not incredible. No, the ratings are bad. They're dropping off a cliff. It's interesting because, you know, Barrowman and David Tennant and Billy Piper were jokingly calling themselves the golden age of Who, and they were. For New Who, that was prime Who. You know, it really was. The David Tennant era was absolutely the best, and I think early Matt Smith, and then after that, just, you know, it kind of waned. Even though I think Capaldi was a decent Doctor, he got some really shitty storylines, and it's just gone downhill. I mean, I think this series has had 5 or 6 good years, and now it's just declining. Like, pull the plug, you know? I mean, pull the plug. If you've run out of ideas and you've run out of things to say, and the only way that you can save the show is a massive, massive retcon and bringing in beloved classic characters for cameo appearances, pull the plug. You know, I'm surprised they didn't accompany Jack's appearance with canned audience applause like they did on Happy Days. You know, like, oh my god, yeah, it's Jack. You know, it's just like, come on. Now everybody's going off on the face of Bo too because of Jack coming back, and that they're going to try to address that in this. I mean, come on, it's over. It's over. But not everybody was surprised by this. Not just the Jack Harkness that I think caught a lot of people off guard, even though there was a lot of talk that the BBC was basically forcing them to go back to formula that worked, so they went back to the Tennant era. But the fact that the Doctor was rumored to be female, again, this did not catch a lot of people off guard, including YouTubers. This is another example. And again, this I heard the rumor, and I don't know if it originated with Gary from Nerdrotic, but I do remember him talking about it a couple months ago. This is yet another example of YouTubers being ahead of the curve, ahead of the media, because the same thing happened with Star Wars. All those crazy, crazy Star Wars rumors for the rise of Skywalker, guess what? 95% of them turned out to be true, and the other 5% were ideas that basically got tossed out and kicked to the editing room floor. So, do I think they're going to make the Doctor originally female? Yeah, I think they are. I think they are. Just because they can. You know, just because they can. Not because they should, just because they can. And again, that just shows how far this show has fallen, how much it's run out of ideas. That you have to do such a massive, massive retcon and bring in celebrity guest stars just to try to salvage the ratings. But I think there's going to be fierce blowback from this going forward. Because again, when you have fandoms that have decades invested in these series, you can't just throw them a massive curveball like that. Some newer fans probably like it. Maybe some older fans do too. But, you know, when you've gone out there and you've bought all the books and you bought all the audio radio plays and you've bought all the merchandise and you consider yourself an expert on a particular franchise, you're going to be salty when they decide to just throw it all out. I mean, you are. It's going to happen. This is why the blowback for Star Trek and Star Wars and Doctor Who is so much fiercer than it is for newer franchises, because we're talking decades of history, decades of canon, decades of lore, decades of in-universe rules that you're just throwing out. You know, and at that point it becomes very, very clear that all you're interested in is making a quick buck, and you're not really interested in servicing those fans who carry these franchises for decades. Oftentimes when there were no new movies, no new TV shows, there were, you know, 16 years without Doctor Who. You know, Star Trek has been hit or miss. I mean, there were years where there was no Star Trek on air. Star Wars, we went, you know, 16 years with no movies, just expanded universe, but you tossed all that out. All those fans bought all that expanded universe stuff, and you threw it all out, you know, to chase this new audience that doesn't really give a shit. So it's going to be interesting to see what the long-term ramifications of this are. Again, I want to be clear, I'm not criticizing Joe Martin. I am criticizing the decision to make a huge retcon like this, apparently just to push an agenda for diversity. There are other ways to do that without retconning a beloved show in such a drastic way. And of course, next week's episode could come and it could all be complete bullshit, and it turns out that she was, you know, not who she claimed to be anyway, or she is a future version of the Doctor thinking she's a past version of the Doctor. Who knows? Who knows? But if this is the route they're going, it's a bad decision. It is a bad decision, especially when the show's declining at the rate it is. A very bad decision. So I'm going to wrap this up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.